Okay, so I wanted to talk about conspiracies a little bit because I know I made some kind of allusions to it in some other videos, but it's something that I haven't really felt like talking about it up until just today, really. So here I am. But no, I mentioned in other videos how there's a lot of like dark, negative energy about it, and there's a lot of information out there, and it can get overwhelming and depressing, and you can get that feeling like that guy from the Matrix, where he wants to be plugged back into the Matrix and just forget everything. I kind of had that feeling one night after doing some research about David Rockefeller and the AIDS virus. So look into that at your own risk. But so basically, every conspiracy you've heard of is true, and probably some are that you haven't heard of. Oklahoma City, for example, is allegedly a conspiracy. I haven't done the research and to view the evidence, but from people that I trust who have looked at the evidence, there's no way that Tim McVeigh just did that much damage with some barrels full of fertilizer or whatever the fuck it was. So, but it's real simple. All of the major conspiracies have been done to either prolong or start a war, because war equals profit. The guys who own the companies that build the weapons make money when they're selling weapons. If there's no war, they're not selling any weapons, so they're not making money, so they're not too happy. Also, the guys own the banks. Some of the guys who have major interest in the major banks are some of the same guys who own the weapons manufacturers. So they're making money on both ends because they loan our government money to buy the weapons, and they own the companies that build the weapons. So that's a pretty sweet deal. It's well known that Prescott Bush was a major supporter of Krupps, which was the German military weapons manufacturer. Not probably because he hated Jews, or maybe he did, I don't know, but because there was a lot of money to be made. So he supported both sides of that war. That's George W. Bush's great grandfather, for those of you that didn't know. So, or grandfather, whatever, it doesn't matter. He was one of the original Skull and Bones guys, and so going back as far as American history, one of the earlier conspiracies to start a war was the bombing of the Maine outside of Cuba. That was possibly an inside job. The bombing took place in a part of the ship where the common guys were located, and the captain's quarters remained safe and all that stuff. That was used as a justification to start the Spanish-American War, where we were trying to get control over Cuba. We thought Cuba would see us as the great liberator, defending them from the Spanish. Didn't quite work out that way, as you may or may not know. And Cuba remained in control, in Spanish control. Next, you have World War I. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, carried out by a member of a group called the Black Hand. And, a lot of money was made in that war. A lot of people died, unfortunately, unnecessarily. But there was a lot of, industrial... that was probably the beginning of what we call the military-industrial complex. Now, it was the first time we had major tanks and airplanes and this major heavy war machine, firing up. And the Armenian genocide also took place during World War I. And that's all I know about that. And of course, ever since I was a kid, I was always skeptical of Pearl Harbor. Like, how could we not know about Pearl Harbor? So now there's a declassified document y'all can read on the internet called the McCollum Memo, I believe, where it outlines 7 or 8 steps that were recommended to the administration to provoke Japan to attack us so we could get into a war to make that money that war makes for those people who were in the war profiteers, as they're referred to correctly. So yeah, not only did we know about Pearl Harbor, but it was intentionally provoked by following these 8 steps, mostly economic sanctions and stuff like that. Another interesting note about that is that Japan there was something called the Black Ships, where I don't know what year it was, but Japan had remained a closed country, closed to the outside world. They were self-contained. They didn't want to do trade with the outside world, and we, America, showed up with our military muscle in the form of these, 4 black, Navy ships, and told them, well, if you don't open yourself to trade with us, we're going to land and start killing people. So they reluctantly did, and so I think there's a lot of resentment ever since then towards, and justly so. I mean, that's fucked up. America's been a bully. People say this is the greatest country in the world. I think Americans should wake up every day with the knowledge or consciousness that this country committed genocide against the Native American population and enslaved the African American population, or the African population, West African mostly population. We're not the good guys. We've never been the good guys. I mean, when 9/11 first happened, my first thought wasn't that it was a conspiracy, but that look at the other side of the coin, and people weren't asking themselves, well, why did these people attack us? Of course, we now know, everyone should know, that it was a controlled demolition, and it was not an attack, and some of the 19 hijackers are still alive today that were supposedly, carrying the thing out. So, how much time do I have? Yeah, and then, of course, the Korean War was just a kind of continuation of World War II. And then, of course, you have JFK and RFK. They were both killed, by the war interests, the Illuminati, if you will. Kennedy wanted to get us out of Vietnam and also wanted to take away the power of the Federal Reserve Bank. As I mentioned earlier, everyone should watch Monopoly Men and Zeitgeist on Google Video as a good starting point to some of this stuff. So after Kennedy was killed, the Bell Helicopter Company got a huge order to produce a lot more helicopters for the war, so they made a lot of money, so they were happy. So I think the guy who owned the Bell Helicopter Company is probably the one behind JFK. That's my personal theory. But nevertheless, Lee Harvey Oswald did not I don't even think, touch a gun that day. If you watch the movie JFK, which I know it's a movie, but it's still all the facts are correct. Lee Harvey Oswald was when the police officer came to the building after the shots had been fired and found Lee Harvey Oswald on the first floor in a lunchroom eating a sandwich. So he would have had to run down 3 flights of steps and then be eating a sandwich, and he would have been winded, but he wasn't winded. He was just calmly sitting there eating a sandwich. So but the most damning evidence is the Zapruder film, because videotape doesn't lie, and the bullet clearly comes from this direction, as Kevin Costner's character says in the movie, back and to the left. So there's the grassy knoll. There's a fence, shots over the fence. Lee Harvey Oswald was back here, people, and so the bullet clearly came from here and blew out the back of his head. So it's actually physically impossible for any shot coming from here to create that effect. Done deal, case closed. There's no even need to discuss any of the other evidence, even though there's a lot of other evidence about it. So, getting low on time here, so there'll be Conspiracy Talk Part 2 coming up here.